Etik ve İtibar Derneği'nin değerli paydaşları, kıymetli katılımcılar, iyi günler.
Distinguished participants to the 8th International Ethics Summit organized by Ethics and Reputation Society. On behalf of our society, I would like to thank you for joining our 8th International Ethics Summit. As we mentioned last year, in 2010, our society is established and we have over 150 members, and we're trying to deploy ethics principles in the business world and to raise awareness in the society. And this is the 8th International Summit, Ethics Summit, but due to COVID pandemics, we're organizing it online. We have 4 different days and 4 different teams, and we have started the journey. And on day 2, we'll be speaking about colors of diversity from an inclusive perspective. And now, so as to open the second day of our summit, I would like to invite Filiz, Toprak, Esin, Meltem, Azbazdar, the members of the Executive Committee of the Society, for their opening address. Hello, everyone. I'd like to say welcome to the 8th International Ethics Summit. We're just having day 2, the second session, and by the working group of inclusiveness and diversity. And together with Filiz, Toprak, Esin, and our secretariat, we're working. Under this working committee, we have several great activities, and especially our members, we wish for their active participation to the working committee activities, and I would like to thank you for your great interest for day 2, and we have over 700 registrations so far, and I'm sure that it's going to be an event that will learn a lot. And Facilitator, we're just organizing the summit on digital platform, because since March 2020, as you all know, due to the pandemics in the entire world, way of doing business actually has changed. Also, our lives have changed a lot. It's not the new normal we are calling it now. We're calling it the normal life. We've been organizing the summit always physical, but of course we are not organizing it eye to eye and by having some chat over the coffee, but it is a snowy Istanbul day, and actually you don't have to take the traffic rush hour to come to the meeting, so you can actually join us anywhere and drinking your coffee over your table. And diversity and inclusiveness. And for our working committee, we still have ongoing activities, but there's one thing I would like to underline, especially the companies are very competitive in the business world, but once we set inclusiveness and diversity, rather than being competitive, they're much more collaborative. So they're taking ideas, sharing experience. And therefore, for diversity and inclusiveness, once we put this on the agenda of the society many long years ago, and as you all know, the corporations are always considering one single perspective, mainly about the gender equality, about equal pay, equal gender. It was just limited to these topics. And once you're limited only to one topic only, it is actually missing, because it's quite a broad concept. Therefore, we actually should have an inclusive approach to both inclusiveness and also diversity. Therefore, while working on and discussing about diversity and inclusiveness, I can say many companies are considering, for example, disability-free working places, or some workplaces without prejudices, or accepting people as they are. We also will be discussing about inclusive leadership as well. Why? Because inclusive leadership is extremely important nowadays. About we can say that there's no hierarchy at all. People are much more courageous, much more interested, and without any generation gap, people actually can communicate at the same level without any hierarchy, independent of age. We have very distinguished guests today, and especially with some inclusiveness activities that they perform in Turkey, also in the world, and they will be sharing their best practices with us. It's very important to internalize this topic. It's actually a part of the geography that we live in, because we're just living in Anatolia, and we actually grow up here. For many centuries, Anatolia was actually the cradle for millions of people from different civilizations as Syrian territory. And at the same time, we have the flora and the fauna in Anatolia, the ground, the earth. Itself, I can say, is actually opening up. It is actually arms to diversity and inclusiveness, so this is something that we cannot avoid. I think that's the reason why, not only in our personal lives, but also in the business world, I can say we're internalizing it. It is actually not only about gender equality, now it is beyond that. I can frankly say it. And we actually have very different speakers. Now, I'd like to give the floor to my very dear friend, Filiz Toprak, Esin, to share the outline of the day. So, once again, welcome everyone to all the participants. That's day 2 of our summit, and we'll be speaking about inclusiveness and diversity. We started the working committee in 2019, I can say, new. First, we had some face-to-face meetings, and during the pandemics, of course, we continued with the online meetings and online activities as a working committee. Of course, COVID-19 has affected our lives. Maybe I can say in terms of the discrimination that we face with and in terms of the non-inclusiveness, I can say maybe the pandemics also raised our awareness and awareness of everyone. We're trying to normalize the extraordinary times that we're going through, but I think we can just draw some lessons. And that's the reason why we dedicate the day for this team. As Meltem stated, we're just leading the working committee together, but of course we invite all members for their active participation. We have very distinguished speakers. First, as the keynote address, we will have the Chief Editor of Socrates Magazine, Caner Eller. Then the L'Oreal Turkey's country CEO, Duffier, have an interview with the Human Resources Director of L'Oreal and how L'Oreal is actually approaching this topic and what they're doing. And then after the video interview, we will have a panel on journey to inclusive leadership. We have very distinguished panelists. And Diageo Turkey CEO Levent Kömür, Gamze Cizreli, founder and CEO of Big Chefs, and again CEO of Filiz, Yavuz, Diren will be together with us, and then we'll have a Q&A session, and that will be the end of the day. I'd like to give the floor to Caner Eller immediately, and just let me say a couple of words. And I'm actually a loyal reader of the Socrates magazine, and the introductory letter of Caner Eller wrote a letter on each issue, and in the Spinoza Etica that he referred to in the last version, the edition, and especially for people who are actually seeking for the truth. And for day 2, I can say, in terms of for those who believe in diversity and inclusiveness, and for those who would like to break their prejudices, I would like to dedicate day 2. So, I'd like to give the floor to Caner Eller.
Çok teşekkür ederim.
Thank you very much.
Bir kere hem
Filiz.
İtibar Derneği'ne bu
Well, I would like to thank to the Ethics and Reputation Society for giving me the opportunity to address to you in this summit, and thank you very much for your kind introductory words. As you can see, I'm already flushing. I think you just may consider that it's reflected as pink on the screen. Especially in sports media, as an anchorman, as the author in sports, addressing to several audiences, but I still have hot flushes, unfortunately, each time that I'm taking the floor, so I would like to apologize in advance. Now, why it is important to make an address here, and I listened to Meltem and Filiz. In terms of inclusiveness, I can say I'm a person who believes I'm disabled. And I actually had a challenge with cancer several times, I can say, in the past. And so I just live like a disabled in my life. And especially, so to break the prejudices, there is a detail I'd like to share with you. And then, of course, I'll just go to the sports media, continue with that, and especially how we're doing it with the Socrates magazine. Now, even today, as you can see, I have beard and I have a long hair. It's actually home life. Of course, there is the effect of the pandemic, but there is snow everywhere and ice, and I actually have a prosthesis on my right leg, and I actually can walk. I had amputation 5 years ago, and for the last 3 to 4 years, I'm just using prosthesis, but it's of course very difficult to walk on snow and ice. Forget about the bad rough grounds, but I, for example, have to go to the hairdresser, but the ground was marble. I have no idea why we actually have such a thing. I also have great experience on hospitals. Trust me that even the entrance stairs are marble. Even the ramp, for example, is very difficult on the rainy and the icy days. I think as a society, as for awareness, which I believe is a term that is losing its actual meaning, but it is important to highlight it is important. I think people from different societies or from different groups, we are all a part of the society. We do not build empathy. I mean, we do not design our lives accordingly. There are different people around us, and we have to consider their experience, and I think it's also very important for the corporations to be standardized. In my own experience, for example, I always have to overcome the obstacles. I'm saying the hairdressers, even the hospitals, and unfortunately even the places where I work, I also suffered a lot. I think maybe by design, or for example in office design, is it going to be possible for everyone to have access to the office? And I always underline one thing, Faye Dilton, a social scientist from Ireland, saying, you mentioned about truth, the actual equality is not about treating everyone the same way. It's about dealing with the requirements of each and every single individual in the way that you should, in the way to meet their requirements. But I can say so many taboos and prejudices in the society. I think we need the environment, create the environment required to break these prejudices, including the disabled or LGBT or gender equality. That's what we mean about inclusiveness and diversity. And I would like to tell you about the story how I entered into my own industry. I'm disabled and I studied engineering, but I just thought to myself I would like to be a sports author and create some content with sports in the media. In 2005 and 2006, I applied to 2 places. And I actually was for both Eurosport, and I was using clutches and 2 clutches at that time. And I was just writing them and never mentioned about my disability and never mentioned about just help me, I'm disabled and so on. I just mentioned them that these are the capabilities that I have and I would like to interview with you for a job opportunity. And from both they said okay. And once they saw me, they were shocked with 2 clutches under my 2 arms and having difficulty to walk. They first thought, how is it going to be possible for you to come to the office and so on? I said, just leave it to me. I actually will handle it somehow. But what was important is that they actually should create the environment that would make me accessible, but I never gave up. I continued to go to the office. That's how I started. For example, example, if I wrote in the first letter that I am disabled, everything would be different. I also should give credit to the people that I talked to. They never forced me, and they encouraged me, and with an inclusive approach. And I think, especially for the disabled person to get into the sports arena, that's how I experienced. I mean, it should not be like it is by law that I have to employ a disabled person. That's not the case. They always thought whether this person can do the job. It's all about merit-based. But of course, to include the disabled people in the working life, I think it's very important to give them more value and to encourage them that you can be a part of our team. Sometimes it's very difficult for the disabled people to think about it. Just I told you about a small experience that I had going to the hairdressers, and you're saying there's some details that you give up. What is important is to create an environment that there are less obstacles, create an ecosystem. I think that's what the managers should do. And then, as for the sports industry or sports media, or in general the sports world, better to say, even thinking about the sports and the institutionalization of sports from the very beginning of the history, there was gender inequality and discrimination, and it's actually an area that really worked hard so as to avoid and overcome that discrimination and inequality. Even football was actually out of conflict of class. There's aristocrats and the bourgeoisie, and in 1930s, gender inequality. For example, today, I think the most important pillar of the civilization, for example, in Western Europe, our women league banned at that time because physically women cannot play football. And this ban continued until 1970s. Although there actually was a gap of time, but again, especially for social awareness, now we have women's leagues. Boston Marathon, Captain Schweitzer, for the first time joined the marathon, although it was banned. And the prejudice saying that women actually do not have the physical strength to do marathon. And therefore, only men competed until 1967. And Catherine Schweitzer registered herself as a male. So they left her at that time to join the marathon. She started to run, and then 2 kilometers 2 or 3, one of the referees tried to take her off the marathon. And a photo was taken, and this photo started a pioneering action. And then she continued to run, by the way, somehow get rid of the referee, and she completed the marathon with no problem at all. She didn't faint, no physical problem, just like the males. Maybe there's a time difference when she completed a longer time, but at least she actually broke a taboo, a cliche. Of course, in gender equality, especially competition is very important between males and females. For example, in 1970s, again, as a homosexual and one of the important women representatives, Beijing as equal pay, equal job. And again, the battle of the genders, again, a symbol, winning a tennis game for LGBT rights after that. And about the equal pay, in 2000, again, Venusa, and in 2007, together with Wimbledon, in all tournaments, major tournaments, the award for both males and females equal, and only in the United States previously it was equal, but an unnecessary discrimination stopped after a great challenge of course. Tennis, for example, is quite an egalitarian ecosystem for sports. The reason why I'm telling you all this is that maybe I can say about prejudices. Eduardo Galeano, the book Woman.
1951'de Life dergisinde
Quotation.
yayınlanan bir fotoğraf.
In Life
New York
magazine in
kültür çevrelerine
1951, a
karıştırılmış. Şehrin
photo
sanatsal avantgardından seçkin
published.
insanlar
And some of the elitists were together, Mark Rothko, Jackson Pollock, de Kooning, and also the solid expressionism, and all males on the photo. But at the back, an unknown woman wearing a black coat. And the people on the photo were not happy about woman having at the back, and even saying apologies for her to be on the photo. And they even said Hebesh Time, a very important artist, and they even said that she was painting like a man. I don't know, maybe as a mindset, you know, painting is a form of art, creativity. Even in 1950s, there actually was discrimination as such at that time. And in sports world, I can say this situation changed later. For example, woman managing men. Backgammon, an important symbol recently. WNBA, the Women NBA League. And, you know, in the United States, I will read it. Fidesz, there is the Ethics Institute in Sports. And in the diversity report, always receiving A+, the highest score, especially for management, the technical team. I mean, especially for having gender diversity more than the other areas. As Richard Levent stated, especially not only the white and the old men, but mostly the black and younger woman set up the women NBA, and that's the reason why they reflect that experience, and that's the reason why they are more diverse and more inclusive. So the WNBA is a symbol for this. But the NBA League is not the case. Of course, men play separately from women. But for example, as a technical director, as a trainer, why we do not have women? And Backgammon from WNBA actually broke this, and Craig Tober, the coach and the president of the league, they actually have a vision. Their vision is very important for that inclusiveness and to allow for the diversity and to leave some room. For Backgammon, right now is the chief trainer and working as the deputy. And Popovic, a great, again, trainer, probably he'll quit in 2 to 3 years. And after that, for the first time, there will be a woman, again, I mean, it's going to be the very first time in the history of NBA, and a woman trainer. And because she's experienced, a great basketball player, good at communication, and quite an experienced person, and probably it would be a great coach. That's the reason why she probably will replace him later. Of course, diversity is important. Sometimes we forget it. I mean, especially there could be the sexual orientation, different ethnicity, and so on. But it's very important for everyone to be a part of that process. It's very critical. We should not have actually any fear of the differences. Differences means diversity. And that's what we're also doing at Socrates magazine. Whenever, for example, in content generation or in diversity, for example, people coming from different environments, women, they, for example, give ideas. And once they start acting, it really increases productivity. That's what I know. And as a disabled person, I'm also, for myself, I can say, both as a manager and also someone who worked in the past in that area, I can say that I know it by experience. But I think I'm a bit out of my time. But that's how I can wrap up, I can say. And hopefully, I actually had the chance to touch upon the different themes of the Attic Summit because I have personal experience on this. And I hope that I actually have conveyed some messages that will be helpful for you.
Çok teşekkür ederim. Şimdi ise yönetim kurulu üyemiz Sayın Meltem Azbazdar ile L'Oréal İnsan Kaynakları Direktörü Demet Akman ve L'Oréal Türkiye İlçe Genel Müdürü Laurent Duffier ile yaptığı keyifli video ile baş başa bırakıyor.
Good afternoon. Today we have with us Mr. Laurent Duffier, Country General Manager of L'Oréal, and we have Demet Akman, who is the HR Director and the Business Leader for Diversity and Inclusion in L'Oréal. Thank you for participating.
Merhaba.
Merhaba,
teşekkürler.
nasılsınız?
Merhaba, teşekkürler.
Merhabalar Demet Hanım, hoş geldiniz. We're going to have a chat about the perspective and priorities of L'Oréal. So first, I want to ask you, Laurent, what does diversity and inclusion mean to L'Oréal, and what are your main priorities under diversity and inclusion, and how do you monitor, assess them?
So you know, at L'Oréal, we are a beauty company, and our mission is to bring beauty for all around the world. So, and by nature, beauty is very diverse. A woman in Asia will not have the same occupation than a woman in Africa or in Latin America or in Europe or in Turkey. So this is why it's very important for us, in order to understand and to answer these different needs in all their diversity, to have also employees which represent and are also a reflection of this world diversity. Because, you know, when you do that, then you are much more stronger and much more relevant when you build a product and take any decision, because you have more perspectives, different perspectives and point of views on the things. And so at the end of the day, it brings you more creativity and more relevance. So somehow, in a way, we could say that diversity and inclusion is fueling our inspiration and our creativity to bring beauty for all across the world. And of course, it's not only about this, but being present and active in this field is also a way for us to show our corporate responsibility. And we think it's our duty as a world citizen, not only to make business, but also to make a positive impact on the world. So to be a little bit more precise, there are actually three main pillars in our diversity and inclusion policy. So the first one is the gender. And as a beauty company, it's quite natural for us to support women very strongly. And so basically, we ensure that women are recruited fairly, that they are promoted fairly, that they are trained also in their leadership, maybe sometimes to overcome some prejudice that they might have even themselves or that their colleagues can have also. This is something which can be very useful. We ensure at L'Oréal Turkey a full transparency and fairness in terms of salary. So we can say very clearly that with the same position, a woman would not make less than a man. I mean, this is a very important principle for us. And finally, we accompany women in the different life cycles that they might have, meaning, of course, maternity, but also later with the needed flexibility with work smart days and home office in order to be able to organize their life, because we know that women also have, in general, a wider charge in the households than a man. I mean, this is a reality. So the second axis is disability. So the first thing which is important for us is to necessarily in a visible way, can disclose it safely. Because in any given company, you will see that there are a lot of people who have disabilities, but they don't dare saying it. And so one of the first actions we are taking is to make these people, if they want, have the capabilities to expose their disability, and so that we can help them the best way possible. So this is the first axis of the disability policy. Then the second axis is, of course, to recruit and to have a percentage of people with disabilities in line with the requirements of the government in Turkey and everywhere in the world. And the last thing, a little bit broader scale, is to influence and to do partnership with our suppliers in order for them also to hire more disabled people. And we have many examples on that front where we can generate employment for disabled people at our suppliers by working with them. And the last element of our diversity policy is the socio and multicultural origin topic. And here we are trying to hire people also from different backgrounds. For example, we have a great story with Syrian refugees that we have hired at L'Oréal, and Demet will tell us a little bit more. And we also sponsor and promote initiatives in underprivileged communities to facilitate access to work. So these are the three pillars of our actions, and for us, it's a very important, of course, axis of our corporate responsibility as a responsible citizen in Turkey and in the world.
It all sounds beautiful. Do you have any measures or do you monitor them at a certain term? Like, do you report them? Do you have any methodology in following up and monitoring and evaluating your success under these three pillars?
Yes, absolutely. I think Demet is going to tell us a little bit more about the details.
Yes, okay. Let me start. Maybe we can start with some concrete examples.
Yes,
and we can start with the gender. So global researchers tell us that women are underrepresented in senior and top management levels. And we see that the higher up in the corporate ladder, we see fewer women, unfortunately, which is not the case in L'Oréal, and we are very proud of it. At the global level, at the company level, at the global level, we are at the 54% in women in terms of the leadership positions. And in Turkey, we are even more than that with 58%. So we have 58% of our country management committee are female. And in all the management levels, we observe more than 50% in terms of the female participation. This has been also recognized, by the way, as you also refer to how we monitor it, also recognized by the external benchmark companies. For the fourth time, for the fourth consecutive year, L'Oréal has been recognized in Bloomberg's 2021 Gender Equality Index, which highlights 380 companies across 44 countries. And the criteria includes the female leadership and talent pipeline, gender pay parity, inclusive culture, and sexual harassment policies. Maybe another benchmark from last year, Equilib ranked L'Oréal in the top 5 of its ranking, which assesses the degree of gender equality of more than 3,500 companies. So again, this is a strong recognition of our long-term efforts to empower people of all genders as part of our commitment of diversity and inclusion. And we are really strongly convinced that the gender equity is a strategic lever to increase well-being at work and definitely fuel creativity and innovation and boost the performance and growth of the company.
Yeah, absolutely, Demet. And there are also some initiatives maybe that are worth mentioning outside of the company. Yes. And more specifically, this beautiful program called For Women in Science, which was one of the flagship programs of L'Oréal corporate responsibility. So what is it about? So it's about a program that we are running for more than 20 years, by the way. So it's not a commitment from yesterday. That aims at encouraging women to embrace scientific careers. Because today you have to know that only 29% of the researchers are women in the world. Hopefully we are close to parity in Turkey, but in the world it's a reality. And out of the 100% of people who got Nobel Prizes, only 3% actually are women. And it's a problem because we know that in research also, women have different perspectives, they have different visions of the problems, and they can contribute very strongly to the science. And we all know that science, I mean, these days, it's quite obvious that it's so important, you know, for our future, being for the pandemic or being for the sustainability of our world. It will all be solved by science. So it's very important for us, this program. And so what is it about? It's basically about each year selecting in each country of the world, including in Turkey, the best young scientists and to bring them to a global ceremony where the most talented ones are awarded and get a scholarship in order to support their research and also training in order to help them in the development of their career. So this is a program that we are doing in partnership with UNESCO for more than 20 years, for more than 17 years in Turkey. In Turkey, we have supported more than 100 women so far with scholarships. And Turkish women are extremely talented, especially the scientific ones. So we got already several Turkish talents which have been awarded also at international level as one of the best in their category. So it's a big source of pride for all of us in Turkey, and it's a way for us to support the growth of women in the scientific field.
It sounds wonderful, and I would like to congratulate you as a company having the feeling and efforts of diversity and inclusion even before it has become a trend topic. You know, now it's a very trendy topic that we all want to cover in the corporate environment. So I think it makes a great change to hear that you've started years ago and had a long way since, you know, you're talking about 20 years ago for some of the programs, and giving the freedom of voice, especially in the workplace, for helping to create a more diverse and inclusive culture in the work environment. I'm sorry, Demet, you were saying something. I think I cut you off.
Yeah, I would like to also mention one of our very critical and important projects, which is dear to our hearts. It's around this disability, actually. As Laurent mentioned in the beginning, do you know that 70% of the disabilities are invisible? So it's really, I mean, a huge ratio. And because of being stigmatized, unfortunately, the employees may not share openly their disabilities. And for this reason, last year, we have launched Delegator campaign, Break the Silence campaign in L'Oréal Turkey on the International Day of Persons with Disabilities. And the purpose is to express our stance on disability, to encourage the employees to disclose any disability, and also to introduce the new platform where we can collect and evaluate all relevant ideas and suggestions from our employees. And also another positive side for this project, we cooperated with a startup called Erişilebilir Her Şey around it. And the startup is founded by 3 entrepreneurs with disabilities. So supporting them is also supporting our project in a way. And again, as Laurent mentioned, we are also partnering with our suppliers in order to create opportunities for disabled people. So this is also one of our pillars, which is really critical to serve our D&I motto.
I think it's really important to bring the business partners into the picture and supporting your cause. It all sounds wonderful, especially on this area, as you have mentioned. It may not come as a priority sometimes, and it's understandable that disabled employees remain silent. I love the name of the project as well. I hope you will be very successful, and we will all learn from each other, you know, in increasing the number of similar projects.
Absolutely, and you know, there is something important also is that all these projects, and I will tell you in 1 minute about another one, which is also very important, but all these projects are very good for the people who benefit from it, but they are also strong engagement levels for our employees, because when you work for a company which has such values, it makes you proud, and it makes you also more engaged. You know why you're waking up every day. You're not just waking up to sell products or whatever. You wake up because you contribute also to a company who is interested in doing good overall. So this is also for us a very strong engagement level. All these corporate responsibility projects that we are running. So, by the way, I just wanted to tell you one word also about our last maybe project on the last pillar, which is the multicultural origins. I touched base already a few minutes ago, but basically it's about helping Syrian refugees. So, of course, we all know, I mean, the difficulties that these people are facing to find work and to you know, find their place sometimes in Turkey. And so we thought about how can we help, and we had an idea, which is that basically we have a brand called Kills, which is a brand having stores, and in some of the locations of the stores, it happens that we have a lot of visitors and tourists from the Gulf region. And so we decided basically to hire refugees who can speak at the same time Turkish to serve the Turkish consumers, and at the same time we can speak Arabic to serve, you know, the tourists. And so it's great because it's very appreciated by the tourists who are visiting Turkey, and at the same time it's good for the company, and it's good for these people who can have access to you know a stable employment with fair conditions and strong also social benefits. So at the end of the day, I mean, it's a project that benefits to all, which is relevant for the business and also relevant for the people. And I think these are the most solid projects at the end of the day.
I was just going to ask, how do you feel about its impact on the business and employees? But you've just answered me. It does really brings purpose into the lives of our employees. So
Absolutely.
That's really strong and very meaningful. Demet, would you like to say a word?
What I can say, maybe I can just say how it is described one of the activists, actually, the diversity and inclusion. Diversity is being invited to the party, and inclusion is being asked to dance. I'm sure you know about this quote, and this is really nicely described why diversity does not exist without inclusion. And when employees feel included, they feel a sense of belonging. They feel they're included, and they feel more positively engaged with the organization. And it means higher employee engagement, driving higher levels of productivity, retention, and overall success for sure of the company. And inclusion is about understanding the differences among individuals and ensuring each person feels valued, safe, and accepted. And of course, I mean, according to some researches, there is the top 3 most important factors which enables a culture of inclusion: the being treated with respect, feeling safe to share opinion, and feeling valued as an individual. And it's really possible with genuine listening, showing curiosity, and really praising the employee contribution. it seems very easy, but at the same time very challenging. Yeah, maybe last words on how we measure what we are doing actually. We are able to measure the outcome of our efforts and actions, and we are really proud to see a strong score in our employee pulse survey, which we run every year. So we see the results as well based on our surveys that we are running yearly basis.
Yeah, and it's even more important, this kind of projects, not only because it's our duty, but also because at this time of remote working, I mean, where many people work from home, you know, it's very important also to have some cement that is also bringing engagement and bringing purpose to the company, especially during these times. I think this is even more important and even more valuable.
Absolutely. It's all about, I think, acceptance, and the refugee project also brings that acceptance level of giving back to the society level. So that sounds all very great, and I congratulate you both for all your efforts. Laurent, would you like to have a closing sentence or word? Anything else you would like to tell us?
Yeah. The thing is that today we spoke about diversity and inclusion, but at the end of the day, it's just one of the aspects of our corporate responsibility and one of our duties to be a global citizen and to make not only a financial impact, but a positive impact on this planet. And it goes along with two other main priorities, which are ethics and sustainability. So these three levels, ethics, sustainability, and diversity and inclusion, in the 21st century, we believe that having these three strong pillars is absolutely fundamental for any company that not only wants to do good, but wants to stay long in this world in the long run, because the consumers and the planet demands it. So not only it's our duty, but it becomes also our license to operate. And so we are and we will always be pioneers and committed on this topic, L'Oréal. Thank you for giving us this opportunity, and we'll be happy to come back one day if you want to talk about the other pillars.
Thank you so much for your valuable contributions and for your participation. As you said, it's not a choice anymore. It's a must. And it's great to be having this discussion with you both. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day, Goshos.
Thank you very much for this interview. Now we'll get back to the panel, so I would like to leave the floor to our moderator. So the floor is yours. Welcome. Actually, we have very strong names, powerful names in our panel. And I'm actually very excited about this panel, and I know that it's going to be very inspiring. I sincerely believe in this. As you know, we are together with Filiz, Yavuz, Diren, Gamze, Cizreli, Levent, Kömür, and together with my colleague Filiz, we'll be asking you some of the questions. By the way, Gamze is actually from Turkey, so we'd like to actually, and you're not actually a member, so we are expecting you to be a member. Yes, of course, why not? You know, inclusive leadership concept that we discussed at the beginning of our program, and I just would like to elaborate on this topic. Because in today's business world, you know, inclusive leadership is very important. It's very much at the forefront, and you know, it's also being requested by everyone, by the employees and everyone. And therefore, I just would like to hear about your own experience, and I'd like to start with Gamze Cizreli. So, how about your own journey of inclusive leadership, what you're doing, and for example, how about the obstacles that you have encountered in your journey? Of course, inclusive leadership, I think I actually watched the very last session, but in speaking about inclusive leadership or diversity, these terms are musts, especially after the pandemic, as you all know. The world is just stepping into a new order, and I think it's going to be again a prerequisite for all the managers. I think there are two aspects about inclusive leadership. As for the corporations, together with the employees, things have changed. In the past, there was a leader, smart, strong, giving all the decisions alone, but at the same time, a lonely hero. And this is also part of the entrepreneurs, I would say, especially the entrepreneurs in their journey of growth. They're alone, in particular, until they reach to a certain size. For myself, for example, almost 3,000 people, because we have so many different franchises now, but we still have the actual inspiration, just like we started as an entrepreneur initially. That's how we manage the company. Especially in doing inclusive leadership, I think the most important thing is that something that the entrepreneurs actually fail to do. They are mostly the founder, the CEO, doing everything, and they will never leave their seat. But 2 years ago, I transferred my position as a CEO to an operation director, no more the CEO. And now what I'm doing is just watching how my company is growing. And I'm also just a part of the strategic decision, but we're doing teamwork. I know it by experience, because especially I'm always telling it to my entrepreneur friends. When time comes, you have to leave your seat, your position. I think this is something valid for all leaders, not only the company leaders, because teamwork is very important, motivating everyone without any gender discrimination. And as a woman leader, I'm very sensitive about this topic. No discrimination based on gender or race or ethnicity. I mean, it's even, if you're asking me, shame over the world and our society to even discuss about these issues. It's very important for the leader to well motivate the employees, to have a democratic environment in the company. These are all very important, and I think I'm really doing it quite well. Of course, I had some challenges because being alone was a difficult thing. I did it. I made it. And I took the decision, so it's all mine. This is no more the case. This is not the case even for today. I mean, there's digital transformation. We have the new Z generation, Y generation. They all have different capabilities. Such a rapid transformation, not possible for you to know everything all by yourself. I mean, you have to act just like a family member. If you're asking, we are doing this quite well. I think there is actually the idea and of this giving value to everyone, sharing opinions, giving joint decisions, to appreciate people. These are important things. I think this is the reflection of inclusive leadership to the company. But the other point is also the suppliers, our guests. I mean, to be in an inclusive leadership position as a whole. We are the service industry. We can speak about 8 million annual visitors to our restaurant. So, as a leader, the messages that I would like to give to the society, as for gender equality, and for example, we have several projects that we supply from women, or for more access for people with disability. Especially or there are different applications that we also develop, and especially for young people with Down syndrome, we also offer them job opportunities together with the Down syndrome society. In 8 of our restaurants, we employ young colleagues with Down syndrome. in particular with the employees in the company, and also in the entire society. We have to embrace everyone, because that's how the world is going on. Without sharing, without unity, without being shoulder by shoulder, it's not possible to grow. Even if you're asking me, grow is going to be something that we should speak about more, because we know about the catering industry right now, but also it is something to do with depleting resources of the world. Also there is less employment, and both for our employees, for our guests, for our suppliers, we have to embrace them. I think we have to be much more conscious and maybe more peaceful. I mean, rather than, for example, just raising our fists, we actually have to open up our arms to everyone. I was such a leader also in the past, but I think we're just speaking more. I think there are further questions. I probably will speak more and more, so I better stop in here. Thank you. Thank you. Filiz, Yavuz, Diren, what do you think about this? I mean, in your personal leadership journey, what do you think about inclusiveness in particular, how it is reflected in your case? Thank you. And I also listened to all the panels before. I enjoyed it a lot. And I actually also joined several panels and to speak about my own company, and I had the opportunity to learn a lot. So I would like to say congratulations, first of all. Of course, in speaking about inclusiveness, I would say, and I would like to speak about Doğan Cüceloğlu, who passed away so recently. You know, he wrote several books, and he had several quotations and all posted in the social media. And I would like to actually commemorate him and share one of his quotations. Doğan Cüceloğlu said, in a world that is just trying to make me someone else, trying to be your own self in such a world is the most challenging task in the world. Just to be you, everyone is fighting for it. How is it going to be possible to find the support to be ourselves, and how we are going to contribute to this fight? Because once we are us, we'll be happier. Regardless of what we are doing, we have to do what we are doing with love and with enjoying the moment that we live in. Of course, to do so, Philip Morris Sabancı is a corporation and acting in 100 countries, thousands of employees, with all the infrastructure, the systems, the compliance units, and at the same time, in each and every country, there are different, for example, beliefs and ethnicities, but with an infrastructure that can embrace all. Therefore, as a professional operating system. But what is important is the essence. The essence is giving value to humans and to empower people. Because once you give value and empower, you are eventually and ultimately inclusive. If each and every individual can talk, if the managers can listen to each and every employee, I mean, it's not possible to be not inclusive. In other words, I would say, in my own leadership journey, what I enjoyed the most, maybe probably because I had a lot of challenge out of it, but it was all about working with people who are not like me. So I thought to myself that they will complement me, my deficiencies, my shortcomings. And that's the reason why people who are different from me always attracted my attention. Of course, in saying diversity and inclusiveness, the very first thing that comes to mind is maybe gender equality, or having people from different genders to be at the same environment and do the same thing or not. But and even discussing it in the year 2021 is actually absurd, in my opinion. I mean, as you all know, the right to vote and to elect and to be elected was given in 1930. And now we're discussing whether women actually have the right to, for example, elect, or do we, for example, even in the family environment, have to defend for our rights. I'm a person who never suffered from anything like this. I mean, for example, I was born in Trabzon, by the way, and I actually studied at a boarding school and came to Istanbul from an Anatolian city. I, for example, worked abroad and observed the discrimination and inequality there. But still discussing this theme is something that really hurts me inside deeply. Of course, with the opportunities offered by my company, I actually tried to build upon that infrastructure and advance it further. As I told you, it's all about the essence. The essence is all about being human and to fully exercise the rights that actually arise from being human. You also mentioned it in the previous panel. Once you bring different ideas and opinions together, and at the same time you observe that you can possibly combine different parts of, I don't know, maybe you actually had the chance to gain 10 units rather than one by doing so. Of course, different thoughts, different past experiences, different genders. It is not an easy task for the leader to put them all together. Why? I think there must be a common ideal for all these differences to come together. You need a framework that you can put everything under. It's not an easy task for a leader. But I think today and in the future, it is going to be a must for the leaders. For example, as it really hurts me inside, the woman issue, I would like to mention it. I think this should no more be an issue in today's world. I mean, for the social and economic life, women must be much more participatory, and they should have an equal vote and equal say. Also, within the family, you have to think it in both ways. Then you have to focusing on the woman, and you have to remind the woman that they have a right to say. Even at different steps of her career, women have a lot to do. We have several opportunities, but we are not aware of them. For example, one thing, asking for something is not an easy task for women. From time to time, you have to do mentorship for women, which is a part of our program. You should do it, and you have to teach women that she can ask for something, and also for the men who are working with women, we have to educate them and remind them that the women that they work with are equals of them. It doesn't matter, as you all know, people have different lives, and there could be ups and downs and in that life, or people all have some stories that the others have no idea about. For example, women, after giving birth, turn back to the office, but always they are saying the woman actually has a better project at home. Maybe I should work on my baby project, but always thinking about going back to the office. So, of course, on the top of the legal rights vested to women, and we at the same time try to facilitate return to the workplace through some orientation programs that we have, and also we help women so as to have a good balance. I have 3 sons, for example. I've been through this process, and especially for I know pretty well why mothers are always asking that question. Of course, creating this environment and facilitate them return to work, and if possible making leaves easier, is something in the hands of the companies and their leaders. The more that we share all these ideas, I'm sure that we'll have the opportunity to have more women, but we should not forget about the fathers as well. As we all know, once we're saying division of labor, and in saying establishing a family, it's not only the mother doing it, also together with the father or together with the partner, they're doing it. So I think in speaking about the rights, we try to make it an equal distribution between the mother and the father. And the other thing I would like to mention about is that we're all business people in that panel. It's not only about our employees or our acquaintances around. Also, if we would like to change the people, change the society, we should be able to touch everywhere. For example, Gamze Cizreli mentioned about the supply of chain. Yes, because we are a part of a big chain. And especially we are responsible also for that chain. Big corporations, in my opinion, should take this responsibility. In our own chain, for example, we have 60,000 tobacco farmers, producers, 150,000 stores. And for these store owners, even 20,000 women store owners, touching them is important. We have to understand their needs. It's important. Sometimes things could be so simple, especially for women to be a part of the business life. For example, we ask for the women traders, what do you think, to the merchants, what do you need? For example, they ask for vocational training, just like the men. But they also said that we actually, for example, need a safety test to do so. And for example, maybe we can provide the software. For example, in our phones there are several apps, for example, and now they can actually be safer through this application. Just to be inclusive, you actually do not have to reinvent America. Even small things can result in a big change and have a big impact. I'm also saying it so as to have access and reach out to all segments of the society. We have to share the good and the well-being to everyone. Maybe we can continue with the rest of the panel, just with last one word. For example, there is no equal pay between men and women. I mean, even it must be out of discussion. If, for example, people spend the same effort, what's the point in not having an equal pay? It is not something I'm proud of, but I would like to underline it. I think, for example, what we're doing is we're just having someone audit us from abroad, an international auditor, just to check whether there's equal pay, equal job or not. Whether, for example, equal bonuses, if they attend the training equally or not. And we just have someone audit us and we receive certificates. And we actually have to take these certificates. Why? We as the leaders should do it not only because we think it that way, but because our companies should do it. Because, as Gamze stated, we need democracy, and everyone should have equal opportunities. And I think I don't want to keep Levent Kömür longer. I think I better end up here. Thank you. Thank you. You're totally right. It's all about intentions, and even spending efforts. And with awareness, you really can make a big difference. And maybe that is the mindset that we should have. Therefore, it's very important to organize these types of panels. And you're right, we're still speaking about gender discrimination in here. But by this way, we learn from each other, we inspire each other. And hopefully, we also will have the chance to apply what we have learned here in our personal lives and our business. Now, let's move to the minority, to Levent Kömür. It's actually human, not man or woman. That's how I prefer. At least I'm not actually diverse in here, I would say, from that perspective. So it stated that inclusive leadership is something demanded in today's world. we have to give an answer to the question why. Then you will have some problems in terms of sustainability of inclusiveness. Why? Why diversity, inclusiveness, inclusive leadership, these types of things that we started to talk, and why these terms become popular recently. And probably, for example, if you ask me why you give importance to inclusiveness as a general manager, probably people will say it's a part of our policy and so on. But my answer to this is, as discussed in the previous panel, it's not a choice. Why it's not a choice, but a must? It's very simple. In 1980, we started globalization, and now we have a huge growth and a fast growth. But now at the point where we are, there is so much uncertainty with regards to sustainability of the companies, and on the top of this, we now have the pandemics, on the top of the uncertainty, so everything is much more uncertain in terms of growth. So from the shareholder capitalism, now we're just moving to stakeholder capitalism. That's what was for the start. I think it's all about the uncertainty, because of the uncertainty with regards to sustainability of the corporations. That's where comes diversity and inclusiveness. As a system analyst, I would say, if there's uncertainty in any system, then you have to inject two things. One thing is empathy, the second is perspective. The wider perspective the managers have in that system, the better that they understand each other, then the system will be out of the crisis. Today, now, as a result of globalization, there is a crisis that we all face with as the corporations, and thanks to perspective and empathy, it will be possible. And to make it happen, we need diversity and inclusiveness. And it's not something new in the world history. And looking at the inventions, looking at civilizations that have been inventions so far, those who survive, or majority of those who survive, paid attention to diversity and inclusiveness. That also was the case in our territory and was the case in Europe. Therefore, it's not something that we reinvent, actually. I mean, diversity and inclusiveness of humanity. After this introduction, it's going to be very difficult to get back to myself, but let me say why. I mean, to the question why. I myself, while I was talking to my friends or received feedback from them, they are telling me that I'm good, you are good at inclusiveness. They're mostly telling me. I think it's something to do with the way that you were raised, and at the same time the way that you happen to do. And also Diageo said the same thing. If you are yourself, I think it is personal freedoms and also equal opportunities. That's the perspective that I have, and both of the panelists also mentioned about equal opportunities. And I think my family contributed a lot, and especially my school life. I graduated from Boğaziçi University, and my university throughout its history mentioned about the importance of freedom to me, to all graduates, and about accepting people as they are, being ethical, the importance of marriage. And they talked to us about diversity and inclusiveness at the university. As I mentioned, the beginning of 1980s in one of my talks, something that was then at several universities was allowed at Boğaziçi University. And that actually equal opportunities, freedom of thought, all supported by the academicians and the students of that time. And I think my school life and my family contributed a lot in my perspective. And about how we act, or what is facilitating. I think there are two things. We have to remove the obstacles and at the same time make it possible. I think in the journey of inclusiveness and diversity, we exercise some unconscious prejudices. We have to get rid of them. Once we get rid of them, the inclusiveness journey would be faster, would be joyful. I think each and every one of us, and we of course all have some unconscious prejudices. We, for example, make comments, and it's not an easy task. But you actually have to start from somewhere. And the second thing is, especially for equal opportunities, I think there are two important things. I think justice and transparency. If in a system there is transparency and justice, then there will be equal opportunities. You don't need to spend some extra effort for this. You just have to ensure for justice and transparency as a manager. And therefore, once you establish them, I mean, as a leader, as a manager, you should contribute to that, because these two terms, in particular, if it flourished, and therefore somehow, I mean, equal opportunities is just a consequence of it. And of course, several other issues will be resolved immediately. So in saying inclusiveness and diversity, for example, gender balance is a topic discussed a lot. I totally agree with Filiz and Gamze that even must be out of discussion many long years ago. But especially thinking about gender balance issue in our country, once we fail to figure it out, it is not going to be possible to do something about the other areas of inclusiveness. Even 100 years ago, we should, for example, forget about the discussion, how many women, how many men, we should have left them behind so many long years ago. But this is not the case for the present time. So I think we should be focusing on this part of the problem and try to overcome this. Then age-related inclusiveness and sexual, again, orientation, about disadvantaged people. I mean, a lot of things that we should do, but we first should handle the gender balance issue. And as discussed a lot, some figures provided about equal job, equal pay, and at the same time equal representation at management level. There are two things that I mentioned about the number of the people who resigned, I mean, in the company. I'm just trying to figure out the balance, and those who promoted. I pay attention to these two figures in my company because I think these are important indicators. And if, for example, I actually have to draw some lesson out of it, and so I actually answered your question.
Biz teşekkür ederiz. Hemen ikinci soruyu da size
Asking the second question to you immediately, I'll be moving on. In workplaces where there are inclusive leaders, what do you think the impact of this on the employees? How do you observe the impact of this on employees? I know the impacts are quite positive. They're just expressed in figures, but is it merely about increasing satisfaction of the employees? As you said, we're living in a world of economic challenges. And how do you think we are managing the concerns and anxiety in the employees when we are an inclusive leader? Thank you. It's a wonderful question. In particular, there are two things that would avoid maybe the anxiety of the employees is to have a perspective, because when there is perspective, in a way, people would appreciate that they're living in a world with empathy, and only then they would be having an incredible thrust. Safety and thrust are translated into the same word in Turkish as güven, but they're not necessarily the same, because when the employees, when they have these two concepts, they want to do whatever they can, the best of them. What is really important is to be within that magic platform. So it's about including everyone, but in that path, it's not about questioning whether we're including everyone, but it's rather about whether I can make that environment possible. In other words, inclusive leadership is not about the door, the place of the door of a room, but rather about the air that is inhaled within that room. As long as you create that atmosphere, I'm sure that sustainability, people will do best for sustainability. That is all I can say for the moment, and then I will just stay aside. What do you think, Filiz? You're just working a lot, working quite hard on these concepts, not only in the corporate environment, but privately as well. What do you think of the impact of it? Actually, I can say that we're all the same, and maybe the only thing that what I can say is we are not any different from each other, because I've been working for this company for 22 years, and I've worked with different companies, and I know the motivations of people who are working with other companies. Therefore, I am Muslim woman, and because of the place that I was born, because of my colors, if I'm not heard, then I would be unhappy. But maybe in a world that all of this doesn't make any sense or doesn't matter, where people hear me because of my ideas and because of my skills, then I would like to speak every time, then I would like to be useful to the companies that I'm working for. So we're no different from each other. So we all need to be heard by others, and we all have the needs and willingness of sharing our opinion. As a matter of fact, as leaders, what we are trying to create is the diversity of the platforms where everybody is representing. So this is what you're trying to do, is you're just trying to urge people to speak up so that people can hear each other's concerns. And it's rather about how the organization will be taught to raise up their voices, how they can be created platforms to be heard. And we are reteaching our leaders to hear others speaking, because it's all about being heard and to create platforms for being heard. I mean, you cannot appreciate for me who I'm to listen to or hear speaking, depending on any of the criteria that I just said. So I think just like me, people will be quite happy as long as they're heard. Thank you. Thank you. I mean, when people are heard sincerely from the bottom of their hearts, the person would feel it, and it's just going to have an impact. As the Mediterraneans, we love to speak, and we are quite excited, and sometimes we don't have the chance of listening to each other when we're excited, but you are right. When somebody hears you from their heart, you would feel quite well. Gamze, I mean, how did you feel in the motivation of the people after all of this? It's a wonderful session. I've been watching Filiz and Levent quite closely. It's quite an informative panel, and would like to thank you very much. And I have to agree the previous speakers, because that feeling of trust, that transparency, that bonding, and sincerity. Sincerity is also important, because we as the service sector or the restaurant sector is a sector where we have a high circulation because, you know, it's a scattered environment. Therefore, being together, everybody has to reach out to everyone from a seat and to make bonds, of course, although there are some interim positions. But in a way, the corporate culture or the perspective of the leader to pass on to everyone, it's really important. I always say we have the project From the Soil to the Table, where we are trying to include women in the supply chain. Actually, it was back in 2018 that we first started 3 years ago. Now, as we keep doing the project, and I was hearing it from our people working on the field, how proud they were just telling about it, how people were encouraged, I mean, the guests were encouraged to consume those products. Actually, we are hosting this project. We are quite sensitive, and it's for the first time that we are the first restaurant chain who is doing it because the leader is a woman, so we are spending efforts in strengthening women because we're sensitive for the issues of the women. So, I mean, it's this motto that our employees were just using, because in a way, we keep telling it to our people. So I see an inclusive leader with high empathy would not only use the feelings and the heart, but also the brain in balance. So this is about reflecting this entire thing to the team. It's how a love brand can become. I mean, I can say this to our own brand because it's been quite a short time that we've reached a certain level of guests, maybe a certain level of size. We've reached it. So we are just getting to a point as a women entrepreneurship brand, and so if we have reached the position of having some, as a, you know, chain restaurant in many countries, it's really exciting to involve the team. And I can see my people. We wouldn't like to upset Gamze or Altan Bey, and it's really important because, you know, I know that the other companies represented here are more multinational, more global, you know, companies, quite different. But we're speaking about a smaller scaled entrepreneurship company, although, I mean, of course, inevitably, the language is different. But despite of the negative dynamics of the entire industry, the circulation of our staff is quite low. And I think this is merely the reason why probably people are proud to have a women leader, a team, the high management leading with some principles and projects. And I think it makes them proud. And I think this is how we are surviving. Well, thank you. I will pass on to Filiz, the other Filiz, and my colleague. Thank you very much, Meltem. Actually, we are getting into the last half an hour of the panel with the Q&A. As we are turning the last corner, I will be asking projections for the future, because new relations, new horizons. How do you see up this in the horizon? There are things that are hurting our hearts now, but how do you think about the perspective for the future? And to make effective use of time, I've checked with the questions, and people were asking about the pandemics as well. What do you think about inclusiveness and diversity after the pandemics? How do you think that the implications of the pandemics would be? Maybe for shorter and longer run, what are your aspirations, dreams and targets after maybe the pandemics? Just to inspire us, what do you think about the future? Then I will leave the floor to Filiz. We have a huge opportunity now because, you know, we're now in the terrible times that has brought us a lot of trouble. We had people who were sick, who died, who had to go through economic challenges, but we also had the opportunity of seeing our weaknesses and strengths as a country. I do think that our solidarity increased, and we've seen the importance of relatives, friends, neighbors, and we had to support each other maybe more than ever. So we remembered indeed the values in this period. Also, we keep speaking about digital transformation. Maybe, I mean, the 10 years we've involved, unfortunately, the restaurants are closed now, and they have built other distribution channels to compensate for that. Consumer habits changed, working habits changed. I mean, we were just discussing whether Friday should be the free day or the half day for our employees, and we would never have imagined a world that all employees could work home, I mean, taking care of their children at the same time. Or we never dreamed that the people needing flexibility can be given that flexibility. And now I'm just sitting here and I was just thinking, were we crazy? I mean, working all that hard, maybe down to the midnight. The technology was ready and people, it was just enough to be pushed a bit so that we can start working as such. So I think the working life, and I'm sure that it's the same for all companies, are now becoming more, flexible. They're just transforming themselves, becoming more flexible and maybe shifting to the office life where people not go because they must, because they want to. And I know that women in many different industries, they have to work, but they cannot work because of their responsibilities at home. Now we'll have better and more flexibility in and probably will have more place in the working life. Not just people working on table, but at the same time those who are working in the field. And it's really my biggest dream to have more people working, more women working on fields. In my previous position, I was a sales director and I was one of the few women in sales. And there I really have noticed that women can be quite successful on field. So we were just discussing always how we can increase the number of women on field. Now leave aside the office work. Even the field work is now transformed into a remote way of working. And I think 2020 brought incredible challenges to us, sometimes anxieties, sometimes upsettings, but has been quite a teaching year. And we're now in the verge of all of these big transformations that we will be adapting to our companies. This way, we will have the chance of including maybe more than ever the individuals who are living in different conditions. And this may be for the first time that we're thinking about it. And I think digital transformation will be the major transformation for women. This I'd like to highlight even further. There is technology available, maybe more than ever. And now it will be the time to involve technology into business life. And it's most of the time the startups that will create and adaptate themselves to technology, but this will be the same for bigger companies, particularly multinationals. It becomes more challenging for them to involve technology or something new into their structure or digest it. This has been a period where people have been courageous enough to say that we can do more. And digitalization is an opportunity not only for the employees of our companies, but we spoke of our supply chains. We spoke of touching the societies and being role models for the societies, but now we're running operations that will be exemplary for the public. And we will make sure that digital literacy is going to be quite relevant there. Actually, all kinds of inclusions and transformations, including inclusiveness in the society. I think we will set off by including the people near us, and then we'll continue with the rest of the society. In terms of inclusiveness, I believe that now we are more inclusive than ever, which is unlike, I think, the working life of the past. And I know that those who are not inclusive will be losing. So every leader must transform for this and to this end, because it's a competition now, and every other day the companies will have to raise the bar a bit further so as not to detach from this race. I think we'll have to multiply these examples, make them become demandable. Even the questions that we don't like should be welcome, because only then we will be improving ourselves, not as an individual only, but as companies. Thank you. Well, thank you, Gamze Hanım. Would like to continue with you. And the questions also indicate restaurants as one of the most effective sectors from the pandemics. Three of you represent quite challenging sectors, but as the service sector, and we know that you had a lot of employees who had to stay away from working life. What is in your dream? How do you see the horizon ahead? Yes, that is true. It's the service sector that was affected the most, and it's just us who are closed with a government decree, excluding the spas and maybe Turkish baths. I mean, we're down to zero revenue. I mean, speaking about 5% of a share in the revenues. And for quite a long time, and it was like 1.5 months that we were locked down, and now it's almost going to be 1 to 3 months, maybe after the government meeting. We are expecting the decision of the government about normalization tonight. But of course, there has been an incredible lowering of the revenues in the sector. And this period, and of course the period ahead of us, to recover, it'll take some time for us to recover, to be honest. Therefore, the service sector, including mine, probably will not be speaking about growing further, and rather will be the time that will concentrate on efficiency and productivity together with the team. And here comes back the inclusive leadership, because in times of crises, it becomes even more important to keep people together. And that has been what we were trying to do in this period. Digitalization, technology, Zoom meetings, WhatsApp groups, just having visuals, to motivate people. I mean, it's been quite a precious time for all of us to make new plans, the new menus, and it's going to be the new time. And we were trying to inspire them for the future, and we are trying to give them the support that they might need in this period. I think the future will be about keeping people and leadership to keep people together. Stakeholder capitalism, I think it's going to be even more relevant for the future, because in the past it was rather about growth. And in our interviews in the economy papers, we were just talking about figures, how the companies used to grow, growth all the time based on figures. But what happens now? We're all shut down. And now there are other sectors growing further. Okay, but as those sectors grow, nobody can be happy if the others are hungry. And what we say in Turkish, if your neighbor sleeps hungry, you cannot sleep. As the Turkish society, we like to share. And I think it was what happened during the initial times of the pandemics. And of course, helping the health care workers and taking care of each other. After this period, I'm sure that employees and suppliers shouldn't be forgotten, by the way. And I'm just emphasizing it all the time, because it's a total of 2 million registered people working in the restaurant business. But together with the suppliers, from dishcloth washers to the valets who are taking care of the cars of guests. I think it makes up to 10 million people together with their families. So we're covering a young population, up to 10 million of a population. Therefore, after this stage, I think CEOs and all the leaders, when we're talking to them, once we're opened up, I think it's going to be more maybe sharing, collaborative. After this period, the companies, doesn't matter how much, I mean, a premier bonuses, even them, I think, will have to be reconsidered altogether, because the time we're losing, we're always just staying away, but in the time that we are going to win and gain more money, it's going to be gaining together. I think it's going to be the win-win situation. Nothing is going to be the same anymore. This is what I believe. And now there will be the new understanding of leadership, management, and we never will be able to work home, unlike you, who are just in the corporate life, and we're expecting to open up, so that people will be coming, and we'll be having a cup of coffee, maybe just over dinner, over lunch, where people will be just discussing their problems. I really missed a lot. Believe me, we are the most affected sector, and I mean, I have a positive perspective towards life, and I'm trying to motivate my team all the time. It's going to pass. I mean, it's going to be over. Yes, it's huge. And for the first time, the world is embracing this crisis. It's going to be a huge change. But I agree with Filiz. And it's been a time of teachings, rather. This is how I prefer to look at it. It's just taught us to make empathy. And on my Instagram account, I shared the story. There is the story of a lizard, and there is the lizard and the Japanese architect, and the architect starts to make repair work, and so is the lizard. I mean, it's just surviving there next to the door, and he realizes that it's just surviving for 10 years and couldn't believe how that would it happen, because it was built 10 years ago, and has seen that there's another lizard just bringing food to the locked down lizard, and says that, okay, I mean, it doesn't matter big data, artificial intelligence, I mean, it's just another lizard that kept the other lizard alive, locked down next to one door. So by love and just solidarity, I think it's going to be how we are going to overcome this period, all together with the employees and all together with the suppliers. Thank you.
So what would you like to add, Levent, Kömür, especially with regards to question and the future? Well, quite a difficult question. Right, the jury is out. You know, we have inclusiveness at one side of the balance and diversity at the other. Probably after the pandemics, maybe there will be more authoritarian regimes to be asked by the people. Because why that authoritarian regime will bring more certainty and will give more trust. So there is actually the dilemma whether freedom or the prosperity. So just like you have to select out of the two. And Halil had such an article. And of course not possible for me to say anything on the contrary, but as for the inclusiveness to win, inclusiveness need two facilitators. If they come for help, inclusiveness will win. So there actually will not be people wearing all uniformly the same thing or uniformly thinking the same, will be changed. One is ethics, as we are speaking to the Ethics and Reputation Society, so one facilitator is ethics. And of course I'm joking, not because you are that society, but ethics will be very helpful for inclusiveness. So we will not have to select between prosperity and freedom. And technology, as Filiz stated, the second facilitator, because For example, plow was also an invention of technology of that time for agriculture. But technology will always be the supporter of inclusiveness and diversity. It has always been so. And maybe, as you all know, human beings are the most disadvantaged creatures on Earth, and technology helped humanity to survive. I'm sure that also inclusiveness will win thanks to the support of technology and ethics. And I have a dream, and I say it everywhere. Once you say it 40 times, it will happen. And I think it is very important for us to actually wake up the naughty class inside each of us. If you would remember that movie and that novel, actually is a class with people from different ethnicities, different cultures. The only commonality in the entire class is that they are fans, supporters of Fenerbahçe Football Club. And once we said that, how I'm noted the class, some of you will remember, for example, Mahmut teacher, some will remember Ayşen Guru'da, the other, maybe Inek Şaban. But my biggest dream is that once again we will have the chance to interact that class, that naughty class mates inside us. So we continue to survive on these territories, I would say. Thank you. As wrote, there is a question actually about technology, by the way. Thank you very much for mentioning about technology, both panelists, because they asked the question whether technology will help to unite or on the contrary will be disruptive or not. And thank you very much for mentioning about technology. Now, the last round of the panel. Speaking about the future, there is a specific question I would like to ask. I listened to you separately, and you actually have different backgrounds, and you mentioned about your academic career, and you're telling us what makes you is your past, which is something so good. But also, as Levent stated, you also have to know about the prejudices that you have. You mentioned about your parents, and in speaking about the future, I would like to ask a question about your children. Once you are a parent, we found out that it is not our words but actions that matter. And therefore, in your personal, private life, and for your children, because as you all know, as a citizen, as an individual, while you're raising your children, how you treat them, it could be consciously or unconsciously. In terms of diversity and inclusiveness, how you just try to make your children know about inclusiveness. It's actually a question for three of you. That's the reason why I make actually a long introduction. I'll not take your time, so you can answer one by one. So you may start with Filiz, I guess. I have three sons, and we because we also have a male cat, so quite male dominant home, and I'm actually a minority, but not the minority, I would say. You will have to be very careful while you're selecting your spouse and your job, because they are actually the source of your happiness in life. Of course, raising a child is actually like shaping a doll, not an easy task, but they actually see a working mother at home, and they observe how the mother and the father are helping each other. Because my main goal is that they'll be happy individuals. And by the way, I have one twin and one son, and you have to help them realize themselves, to reveal their own personality, just like we, for example, prove our existence. That's the only way that we will be happy. Same thing for our children. The time that they feel their own being, they will be happy. I think as parents, in terms of the way that we approach to our children, and the way that we treat them will exactly shape how they will treat their partner, their spouse, their co-workers, their employees in the future. That's what we hope for. That is, of course, we mentioned about empathy. It's not an easy task. Trust me, I have just recently succeeded in understanding men. And it is not only about men trying to understand women, there is also a fact that women also should understand men. So really some of the things were actually simpler than I thought. And I actually had the opportunity to better understand it while I'm just raising my children, especially from the improvised behaviors that they have. So my whole goal is that actually to raise them in a way that they are happy, so they also will make their surrounding happy, and I hope that it will work, so they also will be individuals beneficial for the society. That's what we hope for. Thank you very much. What would you like to say, Gamze? I have two sons. I'm actually a single mother now because both of my sons are in the States, and we actually lived together until university together, my business life, my personal life, and I think in this journey about being sensitive towards the society, and we observed how I work with my co-workers, and in the recent, for example, Women Project, and the project about from women to the dinner tables, and I actually was invited to the United Nations and to address to the assembly, and my son is studying medicine and will be graduating in May and will become a doctor, and in his own university with the Youth Assembly of the United Nations, he had a project about gender-free toilets in the hospitals, and for LGBT, for example, because they do not want to get into the restrooms, men, women. So he had a project on this and discussed that at the United Nations. So, I discussed about women empowerment, and probably I think, for example, he's very sensitive about the society, quite egalitarian, and always thinking about how I can be useful for the society, making, for example, he's telling that I will be both a clinician and a researcher, and I would like to get the Nobel Medicine Prize. So my son actually has such dreams. It's not about I want to be very successful, I want to make a lot of money. No, that's not the case, but he is always just trying to understand how I can be useful for the society. And my second son is studying entrepreneurship in Boston. Now he's working, for example, what can we do for the people with disabilities and so on. So it's all about being, serving to the community. And so, as you mentioned in your introductory speech, it's all about how to inspire your children, not the words but your actions, because actions speak louder than words. So they observe me, and I totally agree with Filiz. So hopefully they'll be actually useful and beneficial for the community, because all parents are really serving the best for their children, and it's good to raise sensible, sensitive children and individuals who are respectful for women. And once they actually have such role models, such mothers, they're also much more sensitive. So I hope they all will have good luck, and I'm quite happy with my sons for now. So what would you like to say, Levent? Not a lot to add. We also have twins, by the way, but one son, one daughter. I'm just thinking to myself, what should I say? But Gamze and Filiz already mentioned about happiness and being an individual. And these two words in particular, or these two concepts, better to say, once you can let them understand these two terms, everything is going so well. What can I say different from what is already mentioned, what I'm doing consciously or unconsciously? I think I'm judging my children less, or try not to judge at all. I try to listen to them. That's all. Thank you. So actually, thank you very much for your time, and thank you very much for sharing your experience with us so generously. And thank you very much at the same time for being very timely. And I'd like to give the floor to Meltem. Thank you. Once again, I would like to repeat, we really enjoyed the session, the panel. Actual time passes so quickly, and I hope that you also enjoyed the panel. You know, it's a topic that becomes much more colorful the more that you talk about it, open up new horizons. And thank you very much for your contribution to the panel. So also I'd like to thank to all the participants as well. As you all know, goodness is contagious, and I hope our children will all have good luck, and hope they always, and we actually move to inclusive parenthood from inclusive leadership, but parenthood is also like being a leader. Thank you very much, and good evening.
Etkinliğimize katıldığınız için gerçekten çok teşekkür ediyoruz.
Actually, we enjoyed the panel a lot, and I forgot to unmute myself. Thank you very much for joining us. And in February 24, at the same hour, we'll be back together. And you are as strong as your weakest link. Are you aware of your third-party related ethics and compliance risks that we'll be discussing about? Also, I would like to say that we'll be more than happy again to be with you on day 3. So good evening, everyone.